Hello, everyone. It's great that you have tuned in today. And for those who will view this later, I'm going to be speaking with Piers Corbyn from the UK. Before I bring Piers into the studio, though, I'm just going to share some background information for you so that you are aware of where Piers is coming from. So Piers Corbyn is a well-respected meteorologist and weather forecaster who has a strong educational background in physics and mathematics. He studied physics at Imperial College in London, where he earned a degree and a PhD in astrophysics. Throughout his education, Piers honed his skills in data analysis, atmospheric physics, and solar terrestrial physics, laying the very foundation for his successful career as a weather forecaster. Now, he has used his expertise to make long-range weather predictions and provide insight into the factors that are affecting global weather patterns. So thank you again for joining us. We will bring him in very soon, but with over 50 years of experience in the field of meteorology, Piers has a wealth of knowledge that he will share on the topic of climate change. And rumour has it he's even been banned from betting on weather forecasts because of his unprecedented accuracy. We hope to dig a little deeper today with Mr. Piers Corbyn and gain a deeper understanding of the complex and pressing issue that people are talking about with climate change. So I will just bring him into the studio now. Welcome, Piers.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Helen.
Fantastic.
Yes. Well,
thank you for joining.
No problem. I should just correct a tiny thing that, I indeed did graduate in Imperial College, got a first-class degree in physics and theoretical physics. The astrophysics, though, was done at Queen Mary College a bit later, but, just so people don't, get the wrong impression or someone says I've misinformed you. And it was an MSc, not a PhD. But I've done a lot of research which was leading towards PhDs, which I didn't complete. Although Imperial College do send me letters, always calling me Dr. Piers Corbyn. So, I passed some exam, but didn't present a thesis. Complicated, but it doesn't matter. I am what I am.
All right. Look, thank you for correcting me, actually, and my information. Okay. So that's great.
Well,
if there's anything
a lot of it out there.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Fabulous. Look, okay, so I'll just get straight into it because I know that we will have some questions towards the end as well for those who are watching online. And even at the end of the interview today, there might be some people who want to comment when they view it later. So look, I think that we can all agree that climate changes. But the root causes as to why is what I'd like to discuss with you today, Piers. And I'm going to start off with a quote here that I have here from Mr. Al Gore from the World Economic Forum panel last month. So if you can bear with me just for a moment.
Yes.
Okay. Just bear with me for a moment because our audience may not have heard this, seen it. So I'm just going to read it off. So people are familiar with that thin blue line around Earth that astronauts bring back from their pictures from space. That's the part of the atmosphere called the stratosphere. It's only 5 to 7 kilometers thick, and that's what we're using as an open sewer. If you could drive a car straight up in the air at a highway speed, that'll could get you to the top of that blue line in 5 minutes, and all the greenhouse gas pollution would be below you. We're still putting 162 million tons into it every single day, and the accumulated amount is now trapped as much extra heat as would be released by 600,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every single day on Earth. That's what's boiling the oceans, creating these atmospheric rivers and the rain bombs, and sucking the moisture out of the land and creating the droughts, melting the ice and raising the sea levels. Now, we have policies implemented as we speak, not just in New Zealand and in the UK, as you know, but in many parts of the world to do with carbon taxes, EVs, and restricted transport, with a heavy emphasis on the greenhouse gases and that renewable energy. So my question here about this claim is that we are putting 162 million tonnes of greenhouse gases in the stratosphere every day, Mr. Piers. What actually is going on here? Can you break down these claims for us?
Yes. Well, there's a massive flux of greenhouse gases in and out of the sea every second. And the mankind's total contribution to this is 4% of that flux. So termites produce 10 times more CO2 than mankind, for example. So that's the first thing to get. The scales they claim are, well, they don't tell you the scale, you see. They just avoid that. But the claims that this is a pollutant is false. Carbon dioxide is the gas of life, and we want more of it, not less, and it helps things grow. The greenhouse theory itself is fake physics. Now, unfortunately, my phone has just gone off.
That's good. I'm glad it wasn't mine.
Yeah, right. I'll just have to. It's Philip Foster. I'll just tell you to stop it ringing again. Philip, yes, I'm just on a Zoom call to New Zealand, but maybe you're going to tell me the name of Ridd anyway.
Yes, Peter.
Peter Ridd, got it. Okay, because I'm going to mention him later. All right, fantastic. I better ring off. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you. Right, that's something for later. Okay. All right, yes, as I was saying, the greenhouse theory is incorrect. It is true, of course, that carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide are good emitters and absorbers of infrared radiation, right? However, the claim that this causes warming is incorrect. For example, let's just understand what they're saying. They're saying that this extra CO2 high up in the atmosphere is causing radiation to go downwards and warm you up. Okay, well, could be. Let's assume that's so. But you see, there's also going to be more carbon dioxide lower down, so that's going to send more radiation upwards. Okay, well, it's warmer down there than it is up there. So the total effect would actually be radiation outwards, not inwards. Okay, so, you know, they only tell you half a story. So if you look at the whole story on their terms, it doesn't work. Put it in simple physics terms, also their theory requires heat to be moving from a cold area to a warm area. Now that is against basic physics. It's against the second law of thermodynamics, if you like. Heat flows from a warm body to a cold body, not the other way around. So this violates the second law of thermodynamics. I'm just getting rid of something that's appeared on the screen here. Do you wish to stop this scan? Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
What is this nonsense? These things always pop up when you don't want them. Right. Okay. So it's against basic physics. And the actual facts are that the temperature range in the atmosphere is nothing to do with carbon dioxide. It's caused by gravity effect. That's why it's colder up there and warmer down here. The actual observations, of course, if their theory was true, would mean that carbon dioxide level changes would cause changes in temperature. But in fact, it's the other way around. What you see is carbon dioxide levels follow changes in temperature. And that is shown by 20,000 years of data. Well, in fact, millions of years of data. But in this pamphlet, for example, we have quite a good little graph of this. And you can download this from weatheraction.com. And if I can look backwards, see the upper graph is the temperatures in Antarctica and the lower graph is carbon dioxide levels. So the carbon dioxide levels go up.
Add that link. Yeah, we'll add that link that you just gave us up in the comments so that people can go on it later.
Weatheraction.com. You can go there and it was a straightforward signpost to find you the way to download this. Very easy to download. And it's very readable, though I say it myself. So carbon dioxide levels follow changes in temperature, not the other way around. So their theory does not work. They have, various advances on this theory of this kind of blanket idea, which doesn't work, but none of their theories actually work. There's a more technical one which we go into there, which requires that there would be a hot spot above the equator due to extra CO2. And I explained that actually it wouldn't be, it'd be a cold spot. Well, after 20 years of increased CO2, sure enough, what turned up was a cold spot. So all their predictions on all variants of their theory work. But at the moment, we stick to the basic theory, which is this one that's contrary to the second law of thermodynamics. The more detailed theory, and we could discuss that later if you want, but it's I'm trying to line that up. You see, one of the graphs.
I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure how clear that is out there. So what we can do is, we'll put all the links in towards the end.
That one shows us their theory is a hot spot, and that one shows what happened is actually a cold spot. The technical reasons for that we can discuss, but you see, all their predictions fail, right? CO2 levels follow temperatures, not the other way around. And their more detailed, clever theories don't work either. And all their predictions also failed, because if it was true by now, Florida should be flooded and the Vanuatu Islands would be submerged. Now they're not. It's just not true. So whatever's happening in the climate is not caused by extra CO2. So man is not responsible in any way for these things. Now, there could be meddling with climate by putting silver iodide in clouds, which causes extra rain, or solid CO2 to make little cold bits, which can cause extra rain. That could easily be what's been happening in New Zealand, but as well as natural changes. Now we can discuss the natural changes right now if you want. Anyway.
Oh, look, there's a lot to digest there, and that's great, because as an educator, it's really important to me that we don't just look at one piece of evidence. We want to look at all evidence, and that's what I teach children as well, not just the one source of truth. Okay, so really clear. Now, I've got a research paper here from Environmental Science Research Letter 2021 that concludes greater than 99% consensus on human-caused climate change in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. Now, almost all accessible scientific data concludes that climate change is caused by humans. Why is it that this data is being studied and interpreted, but that we're not hearing? We're not hearing other people and other scientists like yourself who are talking about alternative to what's actually out there in the media and what our government's talking about.
I have to say, it's corruption in higher education. People who speak out get expelled. And my phone call from my friend Philip Foster, who's another physicist, gave me the first name of Peter Ridd. Peter Ridd, who spoke out about these things in the University of Queensland, said that the barrier reef is in good nick, and all the stories about it being destroyed are complete nonsense. And he was expelled. Now, he's got an ongoing court case with his university, which is not as yet resolved. But his name is Peter Ridd, and you can check it out. Now, other people I know, they shut up because they are frightened of losing their jobs. And they will not have debates. The other side will not have debates. David King, the former chief scientific advisor to the British government, I've challenged him on many occasions to debate. And when I've actually turned up at meetings with him and put certain points like, surely, David, you must know that carbon dioxide levels follow changes in temperature, not the other way around. And then he says there's no time for debate, and he goes off. They all do that. But we challenge any of them to debate. It'd be great if you could organise a debate here. Get one of their experts, I don't mind who, to discuss with me. Or two of them, three of them, I don't mind. But, have an actual discussion, because we have the graphs, and those graphs are accepted by both sides, because they did a lot of measurements to try and prove what was going on. They did a lot of these ice core measurements, but the ice cores show the opposite to what they hoped.
So, Piers, you mentioned Peter Ridd. Somebody else dropped his name recently, so I will look into him.
Yep. Shall we do that? Okay.
You're talking about the debate. Absolutely, we'll take you up on that, and we'll see if we can get someone in New Zealand who's prepared to debate you. Because, you know, as an aside, I'm also having this kind of discussion and issue with some other factors that are affecting New Zealand and the world. You know, with the gender, there's no room for debate apparently. And
yes, men and men and women are women. I can't say that.
Yep. So look, science is not settled, right? And for one theory that some people have, there's other theories. So we need to be able to.
I think that men and women are women is settled, but apparently they think it's not. So they think that's not settled yet. Climate apparently is settled.
So I apologise for diverting, because I know that we can talk about that.
I'm going to talk about the 99% quote as well in a second, but you better finish what you're saying. Yes, sorry.
Absolutely. Look, that's fine. I'll let you talk about the you've got the stage. So talk about that 99% thing.
Right. That's the first thing we deal with in this pamphlet, which is man-made climate change doesn't exist, and you can download it from weatheraction.com. And a man called Dr. David Leggett's examined this claim that 97% of world scientists believe that man-made global warming is real. And this is quoted in Science and Education, number 22 in 2013. So you put Dr. David Leggett, Science and Education 2013, and his name will crop up. And what he says there, he examined all these papers, which they listed, and in fact, they don't say what is claimed. They do put climate change in the headlines or in the abstract or CO2 and refer to climate change. But nowhere in almost all of the papers do they actually say that their study shows that mankind is causing climate change. In fact, only 0.3% of the papers claim that man had caused most post-1950 warming. All the rest just said, well, we're studying climate change. I mean, the rate at which the speed of snails changes when there's more CO2, stuff like that. But it doesn't prove anything about mankind. So that story itself is fake news.
Okay, great. I think we'll move on to the next one then, because look, just before I do move on to the next question, and here in New Zealand, you might have heard about our recent floods in Auckland.
I have, and I've looked at pictures of them. Horrific stuff.
Yep, and we saw both the left and the right-wing politicians place blame on the climate. Okay, the right-wing mayor, the left-wing prime minister, and the leader of the opposition all spoke about climate change. So you're saying they're not right?
Yeah, they're completely wrong. Yeah, climate is always changing.
Can I ask you one thing then? Does this try to let the government off the hook for bad responses or bad planning and infrastructure decisions?
Oh, of course. And people are planting houses in floodplains, you know. I mean, that's
look. I can talk all about that. I live, I drive daily around the red zone in Christchurch, which is Christchurch, New Zealand, where we had our earthquakes in 2011. And, you know, all the damage that was caused along the river, you know, there's no houses now. And so it was discussed for a long time after the earthquakes that all that land was built on swampland. You know, talk about bad decisions and infrastructure. Excuse me. So it's like, what do you say to these politicians? But we will we'll address that again shortly. So, excuse me, got a bit of a cough. So bearing in mind all that you've just said, Mr. Piers, what solutions then should we be looking for from a governmental level and as an organisation, New Conservative, and at a community level?
Okay. Right. So first of all, just deal with the floods themselves. Let's see. Obviously, they have an agenda, these politicians, and they want you to believe in man-made climate change in order to do other things. You know, have a climate lockdown, for example. But let's be clear. I don't know how long ago you last had some of these floods, but you see, I don't know how long they are in New Zealand. But for example, the biggest storm in the British Isles in the last 300 years was in 1703. There hasn't been anything bigger since then. And, masses of ships were destroyed. And that was called the Tempest of 1703. But the logic of their theory is there should be more of these storms now, and that there's not. They just jump on anything that happens and say it's extreme and caused by mankind. So this is obviously a bad flood you've had, and I would say the important thing about the current period is that the world is generally cooling, but because we've got generally low solar activity, that causes the jet stream, which is the upper air between the more polar regions and the more equatorial regions. There's a temperature difference there, and that causes a current of air to go round and round, called the jet stream. And there's one in the northern hemisphere, one in the southern hemisphere, and it gets a lot more wavy in this period of generally low solar activity, and that means you get more extremes. You'll get more cold blasts, you'll get more warm blasts as well. On average, you get more cold blasts because this jet stream moves more equatorwards, so you're going to get slightly more, significantly more cold blasts. So, and there's more temperature contrast, so you will get these big floods and rains. Last time we had this big meandering of the jet stream was in the Maunder minimum period of solar activity, where there's woodcuts of horrendous floods in Europe. Like you've got pictures of cows being swept down streets which have turned into rivers. You know, the sort of things happening now. And we are in the start of one of these periods, and we expect it to get worse in 2030 to 2035. So these type of events are to be expected. When I should also add, though, it could be they're meddling around with clouds, trying to make them worse in order to scare you. So if there's a big cloud and you drop silver iodide or solid carbon dioxide into it, it will nucleate cloud formation or droplet formation quickly and cause floods. They were doing this in 1952 in Britain in what's called the Lynmouth disaster. And they first of all denied they were doing experiments, but they admitted later it was. And that did cause, it was a big thunderstorm there already, and they just zapped it up and up and up, and it caused flood damage and some
okay, perhaps you could put some information later and we can share that. But look, these events like floods, I mean, you mentioned it yourself, there are bigger cycles, and this is normal. Meteorologists often talk about 10-year floods and 100-year floods. And so on. So this one in Auckland, you said, when did we last have the one before that? It was in 1930, I think 1934. A similar size flood. So we know that this happens, and we talk about it. Many years ago, when I was teaching primary school, we would talk about change and the weather cycles, all cycles, and we talk about change and about resilience. Instead of what's happening now, we don't talk about resilience with children, and it's like everything's catastrophizing every event. When we see, when we have a flood, it's everywhere. You've got the internet, and so everything is seen right there and now. Whereas before, we wouldn't have been able to record this kind of level of events which have happened historically, right? Yes, you'd agree with that?
Absolutely agree. Completely. You see. The weather cycles giving you, big extremes are longer than a typical lifetime. So, when people say, I haven't seen this before in my life, it must be man-made climate change. No, you haven't seen it before in your life because you don't live normally to be 150 years. I mean, that's the reason. So, 1934 is outside most people's lifetimes. I mean, that's, it's quite a while ago now, isn't it? So that's 90 or so years ago. Well, that is the fact. And there's many weather cycles which go together in various ways. I mean, one of them, quite simple ones, is a 19-year cycle, which is a lunar effect on circulation patterns. It's the 19-year rotation of the line at which the moon crosses the Earth's orbit, right? It's 18.6 years. And we've had a series of 19-year warm summers in Britain. We've had 1984, 2003 and 2022, you see, and they're natural. There's generally weather cycles. The most significant weather cycle in the Earth of the world temperatures is the 22-year cycle, which is the magnetic cycle of the sun. The 11-year cycle is the amount of particles coming into the sun, but the magnetic direction changes every 11 years. So we have a 22-year magnetic cycle. And that is the one you see. You don't see the 11-year cycle. The reason for that is the Sun-Earth crucial connection is a magnetic connection involving particles, which that changes circulation patterns and the climate. And, you know, the combination of various cycles will give you much longer cycles, you know, 1,000-year sort of things. So there's kind of extra warming typically every 1,000 years. And this one, we've got it's peaked in 2003 and going down very rapidly. But it's a pretty sub-peak compared with all the other peaks that have happened over the last 10,000 years. There's 9 other sub-peaks. And this one is the coldest of the warm sub-peaks, if you like. And there's graphs of that somewhere, but I'm not sure if it's in it is in this book, yes. It's on page 10 of this little pamphlet. This is the 10th. This is the coldest of the 10 peaks of warming that have happened in the last 10,000 years, which again, of course, the last 10,000 years is called an interglacial. It's a warm period of 10,000 years compared with glaciation, in between, namely the ice ages coming in between, which last over 100,000 years. So we are in an interglacial period, and moving towards the end of it, actually, another 1,000 years' time, we'll have, well, the Russians will have to come because the Russia will be covered with ice. I was speaking for people listening in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. I don't know if the Russians will come as far as New Zealand.
No. Okay, great. So in New Zealand, I mean, you're talking around the world, but it's no different around the world. This is happening. I mean, this conversation is happening everywhere with the climate. So, I mean, and we know that climate changes, of course. You know, there's cycles. How much? Yep. How much does it change, and what causes it? I mean, I'm no expert here on climate or the weather or you know, all the things that you're an expert on. So can you just, for the layperson who's watching now, how much does the climate change and what causes that?
Well, if we're talking about what's happening in an interglacial period, the last 10,000 years, then typically the climate could change by 1 or 2 degrees in temperate zones when you have these shifts in the jet stream. And it's the changes in the jet stream which are controlled by the magnetic particle effects from the sun. Those are the crucial things giving you weather extremes, and indeed weather changes, but weather extremes especially, and what we would call climate change. That is something that happens over, you know, more than, say, 20 or 30 years. In the longer term, like tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years, the important thing, again, is solar magnetic connections, but it's the connection between the sun and the earth, and that is affected by the tilt of the earth, which changes slowly every 43,000 years, and the spin of the direction at which the poles point, which has a cycle of 26,000 years. So these things combined give you ice ages or not ice ages. So we are now in an interglacial period between ice ages. So that's the slow changes on the sun's axis and the tilt of the earth, which cause those. But the immediate cause of climate change, as I said, is the change of solar activity, change in the sun-earth magnetic linkages, and therefore the jet stream changing, shifting north and south and getting more severe. And associated with that, we do also have changes in ocean circulation. For example, the Gulf Stream in the Northern Hemisphere shifts further south during these colder periods of more oscillating jet stream. And that means it makes it rain in Spain more than it otherwise would. And that is starting to happen now and will carry on certainly until 2030. And during the last one of these periods, the Maunder minimum, which was, you know, the 1600s, 1700s, that late 1600s. A lot of Germans moved from Germany to Spain because the crops were failing in Germany because the jet stream was too far south, wasn't enough growing season, and they heard that Spain was doing well, and it was South Spain was doing very well because it was getting extra rainfall. So that's the place to go. Any Germans watching, just move to Spain.
I mean, it sounds pretty logical to me that all politicians should have done a PhD in history.
Yeah, but they don't. No, most politicians are people that have failed everything else. That's a fact.
Well, it'd be nice to have some politicians.
They're good at talking, and that's it. No, to be fair, there are some who are very well qualified, and they don't get listened to very much. I mean,
you're right.
Andrew Bridgen MP, he's actually a scientist. He's spoken out about the injection programs. Well, I needn't go into that now, but he's spoken the truth, and he's been vilified by the media. But he will be eventually recognised as one of the few politicians who've spoken out against the narrative forced upon them by the media.
Yes, there's a handful out there speaking out.
Yeah.
You mentioned the term climate change. Now, we can't discuss it without using the language climate change. However, obviously, it creates, for the people that are influencing our media and everything, using that language, climate change, they blow it out of all proportion. Fear narrative. Even with our young people, university and even at school now. So I'm thinking around the idea of the environment and climate, because we know that we have to look after the environment and protect our climate. And New Conservative, the party that I'm co-leader of, we want to provide real solutions, and we believe we do have some. But this is what we have to deal with, and I'm sure that this is around the world as well. For example, New Zealand banned oil and gas exploration, but then we import it. We import coal. We actually import coal from Indonesia. So how is that helping the climate? Give me your reasoning. Why are we doing this?
Well,
speak to our government.
Doing that, it's just it's posing, isn't it? You know what I mean. It's a nonsense. It's politicians posing in the name of some false narrative. But you're right. Importing coal from Indonesia rather than getting it out of your own ground is a stupid thing, and it actually means that you're using more energy to transport this coal around the world. It's a complete nonsense. Same thing's happening in Britain. Although now the government is realising they've got to use some of the coal. There's 300 years of coal underneath the United Kingdom. I mean, we just need to bring it up.
I believe, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the same thing happened over in the UK not too long ago, and then they had to actually open it up because you were having, you needed to import from Ukraine or Russia, and so then you don't have anything.
The Ukraine story about causing the energy crisis is nonsense. The amount of oil coming from Ukraine is zero. I mean, it's they just sort of wrap that up into everything to blame Moscow for everything. Well, Moscow may be to blame for something, but it's certainly not the energy crisis. The energy crisis is caused by the European Union deciding they don't want to buy Russian gas, and then of course the Americans blowing up that pipeline anyway, so the Russian gas wouldn't come. So then the Americans can then sell liquefied natural gas to Europe. Now, that's been going on too. But basically, we should have what politicians ought to do now is think about energy resilience of every country. So in Britain, that means we should dig our own coal. In New Zealand, dig your own coal. That's it. There's nothing wrong with digging coal. Now, look, these people say it's a fossil, it's going to run out. Well, it's going to take hundreds of years. But what is it? It's trees that have been locked up, for a long, long time, and we're releasing them again to bring more CO2 out. And the more CO2 that comes out, the better plants will grow. Although one has to say that in the end, it's the temperature of the sea which will decide what the levels of CO2 are going to be. So you can add extra CO2 if you want, but actually it'll go into the sea unless the sea is warm enough to eject it. The reason we have extra CO2 now is nothing to do with mankind. It's an after effect of the medieval warm period, when from there CO2 went into the sea and it's now being ejected. And the reason for that is also given in this pamphlet on page 4. The reason for the delay is there. And Philip Foster, that I just spoke to on the phone, was instrumental in writing that part of this pamphlet. So you understand that it's CO2 levels are controlled by sea temperatures, which are primarily controlled by the sun. And there's a delayed effect, so the CO2 comes out about 500 to 800 years later. And there's 50 times more CO2 stored in the sea than there is in the air. So all this talk of acidification is complete nonsense. If all the CO2 in the air suddenly went in the sea, it would just change it by 2%. I mean, it's insane. And the idea that the barrier reef is dying is just complete nonsense. It is absolute, utter lies.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. Before you leave, though, have we got time for a couple of questions from people? Yep. Okay. So I've got some questions, actually, some comments. There's comments as well as some questions here. But yeah, look, Charmaine actually agreed with you, and so do many people in New Zealand, that each country should use its own natural resources. And we completely agree with that statement, Charmaine. So thank you for that. There's something here for you, Piers. I saw Piers Corbyn on the BBC News last year. It was great. I don't think that the BBC were expecting what you had to say. Keep going, Piers.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Was it BBC or ITV? I can't remember, but it was that one with Piers Morgan. Big argument, and he went completely berserk.
Oh, really?
There 3 of them all shouting at me. And then, logically, they should have had me on again, because we had an even bigger demonstration. They were complaining about that I'd spoken at. You know.
Oh, look, the thing is,
I'm basically
the conversation and the debate and all the noise is important, instead of actually we've got a big issue in New Zealand about free speech, and they've got this hate speech law coming, and it's like, well, unless we actually talk about it and allow people to talk about what they're feeling and thinking, they're gonna, you can't just, it's kind of fester. So we need to discuss
just lock everything down as hate speech. I mean,
no, you can't.
I have to say, I hate Bill Gates, but it doesn't mean he can't speak, or that I shouldn't be allowed to speak because I hate Bill. I'm sure you've got lots of people you hate, but I don't.
Well, the problem is what is hate speech?
I hate Bill Gates, though. I hate his politics and the fact he's, making billions out of jamming the world. But we have to be allowed to
look. Speech is whether who gets to decide what is hate, and some people are saying, well, hate is anything that somebody else disagrees with. It's a bit, Look, I've got another question
debate,
here.
actually, this talk does mean it. You see, they don't.
I'll bring up
MPs who speak out are shut down. Look, we had 1.5 million people demonstrating in Britain in 2021. That wasn't on the BBC. It wasn't reported. That's amazing. Not reported. We now have a media controlled, and it's not just the state media. We've also got the, Facebook and so forth, who on a regular basis just shut people down. I mean, we're on the second attempt to get a live stream on YouTube, and go there, let the UK live live stream on YouTube, or our channel on YouTube. Join it, please. And also follow my websites. We've got stopnewnormal.net that has lots of things on it, and lettheuklive.com, although there's something wrong with the site today, but it will be back working. But stopnewnormal.net carries loads of stuff, and I'm, as you know, leader of the Let the UK Live.
Great. So this is going live to our YouTube, so people will be able to hear that and then go on to those. But I've got some more questions here, Piers, just a couple of minutes. So I've got something here from Paul. Yes, absolutely. The main determinant of CO2 levels in the atmosphere is sea temperature. Warmer sea, outgassing of CO2, cooler sea, equals CO2 absorbed by the sea. See, some people do know, what you're talking about.
Well, it's common sense. You warm a bottle of pop-up and the CO2 comes out. I mean, it does that, right?
I wonder, I've got something that's come through to me here. Carbon credit trading is a money-making scheme. What's your take on that?
Yes. You see, with this story, they've got to have money. They've got to have a way of making money, and carbon credit trading is one way. Control of people's lives is another. They've got these zoning campaigns in Britain where we've got an ultra low emission zone, so you can't drive out of older. You can't drive older cars in parts of London without paying £12.50 a day. So we're against that and all the other zoning things. But again, all this stuff is in the name of saving the planet, right? Well, actually, what it's doing is it makes more CO2 because people drive greater distances to avoid the zones. But, it's all done in the name of saving the planet. Actually, what it's doing is destroying small businesses, which helps the mega corporations. And the carbon trading, again, helps the mega corporations and the hedge funds, because they've got massive amounts of money, so they can see what's going on. They buy and sell carbon credits, and anyone who wants to do something big has to have a carbon credit to set up a factory or whatever. So it is all about control, and profits by the mega rich who want to change the world into a new world order. They said so.
Well, we do have a war. We do have a war on our farmers over here, and it's a real struggle for them. The regulations that they have, that's just,
they can justify. They should break the rules. Look, I've driven continually on this ultra low emission zone thing since it began, and I now owe, because they have a charge and then a charge on a charge and a charge on a charge and a charge. You won't believe it. I now owe them officially £42,000. Now that's unbelievable. That's what they sent me letters. I'm not going to pay it at all. I'll rather go to prison. But you see, the whole charge system's illegal, we think, so they don't want to take me to court. So they're running away, and lots of people are now doing this. In Birmingham, people have been breaking their rules like that, and the council's given up. They can't catch everybody who's not paying.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we've got a big shortage over here on eggs, probably across the world.
And the farmers are told to do this. Just don't do it. Just break the rules.
I hear you.
Cows farting is changing climate is complete nonsense. It is absolute lies. The greenhouse story is fake physics.
Well, I did something that's happened here recently with our eggs, and then people were talking about getting their own chickens in their backyard, and then it was, panic, and they're like, no, you can't have chickens in your backyard, and I'm just like, just do it, have a chicken,
exactly.
Chicken or two.
What are they going to do? Are they going to come and arrest the chickens? What are they going to do?
We don't have enough police force now to actually deal with our crime. So they're going to come knocking on every household to arrest you or take away your chickens.
They're going to take away your chicken for takeaway chicken. Yes.
Chicken takeaway tonight. Okay, sorry, but need to get back to this. So one more question. Have you got time for one more?
Yeah, fine. As long as you want. I don't mind. What's the time?
Yeah, right. Thank you. Okay. I've got someone here who's talking about per capita in New Zealand. We're a small nation. So per capita is misleading for countries with small populations compared to country size when we're talking about, I mean, that's another area where it's like, well, okay, I won't talk about certain countries, but we know that there's some countries out there who are producing a lot more of these gases and things, and yet for our small country, we're supposed to basically criminalize our people and destroy our economy.
It's about destruction of the economy, and who's going to gain out of the destruction of the New Zealand economy? Well, I don't know. You should look into that. But I mean, it'll be the mega corporations who will take over your destroyed small businesses, and they'll be charged, employing people at low wages. That's what they'll do. Now, I don't know what plan they have for New Zealand, but you see, the effect of these things on Britain again is destroying British industry and bringing in mega corporations, and then getting people to think, we've got to get rid of this chaos. Let's have a new world tyranny. A new world order, they think. But bear in mind, how did Hitler get into power? He said, we'll bring order where there's chaos. People voted for it. Now, they maybe regretted it later, of course, but, that is what the World Economic Forum want. They want this chaos in order to justify imposing more and more controls worldwide. And in every country, they've got willing, what do you call them? I don't know, but anyway, they got willing, compliant politicians who think they're going to be saved by complying with this. Well, they won't be. They'll be disposed in due course. But those are the people you've got to attack, and you should defend any politician who's prepared to stand up honestly. Honestly, give them a test. Ask them, do you support free speech? Do you agree men are men and women are women? Do you agree in accountability? That is, that MPs who betray us should be subject to election. We should have a referendum or an opinion poll site, like, if 10% of the population want a re-election, you should have a re-election, stuff like that. But they run away when you talk about these things, and that's the way you can know which politicians are really for you and which are not.
Absolutely. So we're trying to change that. We're trying to change that here in New Zealand by voting in some of these smaller parties who have really good leaders who are standing up against those narratives.
We need a kind of united front of these small parties. That's what we're trying to do in Britain.
That's right. So Paul here. Oh, hang on. I've got another one. Sorry, there's another one.
No problem.
No, a different one. Piers from Paul. What do you think about the war on farming and farmers in multiple countries? Do you have any ideas on how farmers and others should organise against this? I suppose you actually answered that before, didn't you? Maybe I didn't see the question.
But I'll give you some examples of what's happening in the Netherlands. They put their tractors on the road and they drive slowly, and they bring the whole of the Netherlands to a halt with their tractors. And Netherlands is quite a small country and easy to bring it to a halt. New Zealand may be a bit different, but, they think of actions. Another thing is they're dumping dung on the doors of politicians. I fully support that. But carry on, just do what you have to do. Carry on with the cows, carry on milking the cows, carry on with your own chickens in your gardens. Just do what is sensible and tell these politicians to go to hell.
Well, I think we do need to be sensible, that's for sure. And we are certainly a party with common sense. Can I just read a quote for you and get your thoughts on this? I think you'll like it, and you might have actually seen it anyway. There's a climate scientist, Ian Plimmer, who actually said this. Now, this is good. If we humans wanted to change climate on the Earth, we would have to stop bacteria from what bacteria do, change ocean currents, manage the drift of continents, change the Earth's orbit, control the variability of the sun, and control supernovas eruptions. Piece of cake, right? Yes?
Hooray! That's right. We'd have to do that. And that is not possible. In fact, none of those things can be done by mankind.
No. So we'll leave the audience to think about that, and to also contact you. Are they able to contact you if I put your details?
Come to weatheraction.com, where you can put messages, or stopnewnormal.net and lettheuklive.com. I'm sorry, that's a lot of things, but maybe the simplest is come to my Twitter feed, which is @real Piers Corbyn. It replaces the old one where I was chopped off for saying too much, and Elon Musk hasn't reinstated me, curiously. Why not?
Well, that's great. So Twitter
@real Piers Corbyn.
So I will add you as well, because I've only just started on Twitter. I think I joined at a good time, Piers, with Elon Musk. Yeah,
it's good. It's slightly better with Elon Musk, but frankly, look, if he really believed in freedom, he would have reinstated my 40,000 lost souls who are out there somewhere. We were chopped off when I had, what was it called, Piers _Corbyn. So
well, maybe in his busy life. Maybe in his busy life, like you, he just hasn't actually had chance. Hey, look, we hope that this interview has provided valuable insight into the complex issues and the discussions around climate, the change, and the role that individuals, organisations, and governments play in addressing it.
Yes.
So, we all know that we have to look after our environments, and we've talked about that. We need a concerted effort from all of us to provide solutions for on the ground stuff, pollution solutions, using our own resources. We thank you, Piers Corbyn, for sharing your expertise and knowledge on this important topic. I really appreciate your time this evening. I know it's evening over there, so you'll be...
No problem.
What is it? Getting ready for bed, maybe?
No, it's 10 o'clock now. That's fine.
Okay. Oh, so appreciate your time.
It's 10 p.m. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good luck in everything you're doing there. And thank you for this interview.
Thank you. We'll keep in touch. Thanks, Piers. Good night.